Wait before you ask your child what's wrong again. Listen to me, because I learned the hard way that this simple question can totally scramble a young brain. I am a dad who always believed I was being caring and present, the kind of guy who checked feelings all the time, until I started studying early childhood neuroscience and realized something shocking. Kids between 0 and 5 are building neural connections at insane speed, and every word we use becomes part of how their emotional system organizes reality. In this video, I am going to show you why the classic question can overload processing, how it creates pressure instead of safety, and what to say instead so your child feels understood without needing to explain what they can't even name yet. I will break down research in a simple way, share real moments from parents who changed one phrase and saw massive behavioral shifts, and give you practical tools you can use today during tantrums, crying spells, or silent shutdowns. We will explore how young brains process language differently, why abstract questions feel like exams, and how supportive statements build emotional intelligence faster than interrogation ever could. You will discover the hidden difference between connection and confusion, and how conscious communication literally sculpts brain pathways linked to resilience and trust. But there is one deeper question that flipped everything for me and for many families I worked with. If asking what's wrong is not the best opening move, what words unlock regulation, cooperation, and real connection while your child still feels safe and seen? Stay with me, because by the end you will understand exactly how to transform everyday emotional chaos into powerful moments of brain growth and bonding. I remember a specific afternoon when my toddler threw toys across the living room and I almost reacted on autopilot. The old version of me would fire questions rapidly, trying to solve the problem with logic, but I paused and observed his body first. His shoulders were tight, his eyes were watery, and his breathing was fast, clear signs that his nervous system was overwhelmed. That moment showed me kids feel emotions in their bodies long before language arrives. When adults push for explanations too early, the brain shifts into defense mode and communication shuts down. Instead of opening up, children freeze, guess random answers, or escalate behavior just to escape the pressure. Now that you are with me, let me explain why young children struggle so much when we ask them to analyze feelings too early. When a toddler is crying or a preschooler suddenly goes silent, their brain is not operating in the logical adult mode we expect. The emotional centers are firing fast while the language areas are still developing, which means they feel everything intensely but cannot translate those sensations into clear words. When I first understood this, it completely changed how I reacted to big emotions at home. Instead of expecting explanations, I began observing behavior as communication. Neuroscience shows that during early childhood, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and verbal organization, is still under construction. When we ask complex questions, the brain has to pause emotional processing just to search for language, and that creates internal stress. Imagine someone asking you to write a detailed report while you are running from a loud alarm. That is similar to what happens inside a child's nervous system. Research on emotional coaching also shows that children regulate faster when adults describe what they see instead of demanding answers. Saying "I see you are upset" or "that looked frustrating" gives the brain a mirror, not a test. This helps the child feel understood and activates neural pathways linked to safety and trust. Another powerful concept is co-regulation. Young brains borrow calm from adult nervous systems, which means our tone, posture, and timing matter more than the specific words we use. When I slowed my voice and replaced questions with gentle observations, meltdowns shortened and connection deepened. The goal is not to remove curiosity, but to match language with developmental capacity. When kids feel safe first, they eventually learn to name emotions on their own, building genuine emotional intelligence instead of memorized scripts. And here is the interesting part: when parents shift from interrogation to validation, children often start sharing more spontaneously because pressure disappears and curiosity becomes collaboration. There was a period when I thought I was doing everything right, reading books, following parenting pages, asking questions with the best intentions, yet the reactions I got from my child were getting more intense instead of calmer. I started noticing a pattern. Every time I asked what's wrong during a meltdown, the crying either got louder or my kid completely shut down and looked away. That confusion pushed me to investigate deeper, and what I found surprised me. Many children interpret direct emotional questions as pressure because they sense they are expected to produce an answer quickly. When they cannot explain themselves, shame can creep in even if no one said anything negative. I remember one moment at a crowded birthday party when my son suddenly refused to play and clung to my leg. I leaned down and asked the usual question, and he froze. His eyes went blank and his body got stiff. Later, I realized the environment was overwhelming, but at that moment, his brain could not analyze sensory overload and convert it into language. The conflict between what he felt and what he could express created more stress. Another obstacle parents face is cultural expectation. Many of us grew up hearing that talking immediately solves everything, so silence feels wrong. But neuroscience shows that processing time is essential for young nervous systems. When kids feel rushed, cortisol levels can spike, which prolongs emotional storms instead of resolving them. I also noticed my own emotional triggers played a role. When my child cried in public, I felt judged and tried to fix the situation fast, which made my questions sound urgent instead of supportive. This created a cycle where my anxiety amplified his. Understanding this helped me see that communication is not just about the child's brain, but also about my regulation as a parent. Another tension appears when multiple adults give different responses. One caregiver asks questions, another ignores feelings, and the child receives mixed signals that create internal conflict. Consistency becomes crucial, and here is something that opened my eyes completely. Sometimes children say nothing because they are scanning the adult's face to determine if the emotion is allowed. If they sense frustration or impatience, they hold everything inside, which later explodes in unexpected ways. This realization forced me to confront how subtle expressions and tone shape emotional safety. During this journey, I kept asking myself a big question. If direct questioning increases pressure and silence increases distance, how do we guide emotional growth without losing connection or clarity? I knew there had to be a middle path, one that respected brain development while still teaching communication skills. That search led me into experiments at home, small language shifts, observation techniques, and co-regulation practices that slowly transformed our daily interactions. But the biggest breakthrough came from understanding one counterintuitive principle that almost no parent talks about openly, and it completely flipped the way I approached tantrums, resistance, and emotional shutdowns. The turning point came when I stopped trying to extract explanations and started offering structure and safety through my own words. Instead of asking what's wrong, I began describing what I noticed in a calm and grounded tone. I would say things like, "I see your hands are tight," or "that looked really frustrating," and something almost magical happened. My child felt seen without needing to perform language he was not ready to use. Neuroscience explains that when a child hears accurate emotional labeling from a regulated adult, mirror neurons activate and help the brain organize internal chaos into understandable patterns. This process reduces stress hormones and supports the growth of neural circuits responsible for emotional regulation. I also learned to slow down my body language. Kneeling to eye level, softening my face, and lowering my voice signaled safety to the nervous system long before any words were processed. Another powerful technique was offering simple choices instead of questions that demanded analysis. I might say, "Do you want a hug or a quiet moment?" which allowed my child to regain a sense of control without pressure to explain complex feelings. Consistency became my strongest ally. Repeating supportive phrases created predictable emotional anchors that my child could rely on during overwhelming moments. Over time, I noticed shorter tantrums, faster recovery, and more spontaneous sharing once calm returned. One evening after a tough daycare day, my child walked up to me and said I felt sad when my friend didn't play with me. That moment showed me that emotional language develops naturally when safety comes first. I also integrated cultural practices from different parenting approaches that emphasize presence over interrogation, such as pausing before speaking and acknowledging the environment around the child. Another breakthrough was recognizing that silence is not absence of communication but a stage of processing. By respecting quiet moments, I allowed the brain to integrate experiences instead of rushing into forced conversations. And now I can finally answer the big question I raised earlier. If asking what's wrong is not the best opening move, what should we say instead to unlock a child's brain and help regulation happen faster? The answer is simple but powerful. Start with observation, offer validation, and wait for connection before curiosity. This sequence builds a bridge between emotion and language without overwhelming the nervous system. When children feel safe first, they naturally begin to reflect and share, transforming everyday chaos into opportunities for brain growth and deep trust. As I started applying these changes every single day, something deeper shifted inside me as a father. I stopped seeing tantrums as problems to fix and began seeing them as messages from a brain under construction. That mindset alone reduced my own stress, which immediately made my child feel safer around me. I realized that conscious parenting is not about perfect scripts, but about building a predictable emotional environment where the child knows the adult is steady even when emotions explode. Over time, my child became more confident expressing feelings because he no longer feared being tested or judged. Moments that once turned into long battles became short waves that passed quickly. I also noticed stronger eye contact, more spontaneous hugs, and conversations appearing naturally during calm moments like bedtime or car rides. Science explains this as a result of secure attachment strengthening neural pathways linked to trust and communication. When the brain associates parents with safety instead of pressure, curiosity opens and learning accelerates. Another lesson I want every parent to remember is that language is only one part of the equation. Presence, patience, and regulated breathing from the adult shape the emotional climate far more than clever phrases. When I focused on my own nervous system first, my child mirrored that calmness almost instantly. This is why the early years between 0 and 5 are so critical. The brain is incredibly plastic, absorbing patterns that will influence emotional resilience for decades. Every supportive interaction becomes a building block for future relationships, school experiences, and self-confidence. If you take one thing from this entire journey, let it be this: connection comes before correction, and observation comes before questions. When we slow down and meet children where they are developmentally, we transform everyday chaos into powerful opportunities for growth. And if this perspective helped you rethink even one moment with your child today, imagine what consistent practice can do over weeks and months. So if you want more science-based strategies explained in a simple and practical way, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now and check out the next videos. Because together we can build stronger brains, calmer homes, and kids who grow up feeling truly understood and emotionally unstoppable.